Yay! Welcome everyone. I am recording this, okay? I remember to record this. It's been that kind of day, you guys. But don't forget that this Saturday we do have Meg's book launch with Inklings Publishing from 7 to 9 this Saturday. Fern, I don't know why it didn't go out in the Friday email because I have it. I just like go and clone. I have like the Friday mastermind email and then the Monday night, and I go and clone them. And so it must have been in the one that I cloned that it didn't have it, but it was on there today. So don't forget to attend that. That's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. She's one that always does like the custom cocktails, and it's woo! I'm just excited. But trivia, you have to buff up on your horror trivia there. Me and Fern aren't good at it.
She is really intense with her trivia, Meg.
Yeah, you you think I'm detail oriented. That girl is detail oriented. Anyways, that's the book launch that we have coming up this Saturday. Next Friday before Halloween will be David Baylog's book launch, and it is a costume tea party. I'm excited about that. I have to find my costume. But so those are the two book launches that we have, and then we're going to kick it over to Julie for her audio book launch, which is November 6th. So those are going to be coming up in the email. Having more as we go. I believe the next book launch we're going to have that we scheduled today is Teresa's, which is on November 28th, like that Saturday right after Thanksgiving. But tonight, I hope everyone answered. Oh, there you go. CJ's November 5th, 'tis the season. So your anthology book comes out on the 5th. Am I right? I'm sorry. Okay.
The 5th at 6.
Okay, the 5th at 6th, that's not confusing at all. Okay, that's great. You're going to have to send that to me in an email so I make sure that I get that right. But
actually, I did.
Well, forward it to me. I guess I mean, resend it to me, but I'll write it down while Josh is talking. I'll write it down so I don't forget. But in the email, I did ask if any of you guys had thought about your book becoming a movie, which I know all of us have thought of or hoped of, and who you would want to play your main characters. So be thinking of that. Put them in the chat because I have some ideas for some of your guys' book on who would play the main character. But tonight, talking to us about book trailers is the fabulous Josh. So take it away, Josh.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Josh Trant, and I created Front Rows Productions, which is a book trailer editing service. And it started off in New York. I was out in New York studying acting at the Actors Studio Drama School at Pace University. And while I was there, at the time, my mother was developing a novel, and it was a high-tech thriller called Hashtagged. And around that time, she was hearing about book trailers during book launches and asked me as an editor at the time through my own acting sort of videos if I would be interested in making her a book trailer to help, showcase the novel. And so I took a stab at it. And after, I don't know, maybe a week or so, it started sinking in that, oh, wait, okay, there's actually a very detailed way you can tell a story in 2 minutes when it's like a movie trailer. And from there, this artistic form started to take place. And once I got it locked in for her book, we had about, I think, 10,000 views within the first month whenever she was getting ready to launch. And so something started to sort of catch hold, this idea. And from there, did someone have a question? I thought I heard somebody. No. So anyway, so from there, my mom got involved with the Texas Authors Organization, and it started grassrooting some connections through there, as well as New York. I have a couple of published authors in New York who were telling people about my trailers. And then this started spiraling into a business. And it's been something that is such a creative outlet for me that I actually look forward to a lot. It's a very collaborative process, and Front Rows was born. I was thinking actually about this, about a deeper level to this, because growing up, although my mom is a writer and I'm now an avid reader and constantly catching up on a new book, I hated reading growing up. It was always something that I did not want to sit still for or do. My attention span was going crazy. And it wasn't until I read Dave Pilkey's Captain Underpants that got me to sit down and start doing the fliporama. Okay. So I was always, as a kid, visually attracted to a story. And this probably led to why I want to be an actor and why I love movies. But the visual aspect of a story is really made for, people like me who don't want to sit still and sit down and read a book. Now, although that's changed as I've gotten older, I really do think the trailer has some play into that psychological effect that at the end of the day, if you have 10 minutes to explain someone the premise of your story, I'm sure that it would benefit both parties. But the fact is 10 minutes these days is almost like an hour for an attention span. And so 2 minutes in a short snippet or less of a visual and auditory story that pretty much encompasses the heart of your book. I have found, and we have found through the people I've worked with, is that it's actually a very piercing way to get through to the potential reader. So it kind of plays on a lot of factors of attention span, as well as just good marketing for the book. And also some stories are hard to grasp up front. My mom's story was about robots taking over through an algorithm of hashtags. I don't even know what that would look like. So putting some visuals attached to a grand story like this, it really does, I think, really does cut through a lot of ambiguity whenever you have such a complex storyline, which I feel like as more stories come out, it tends to be more and more complex because we're all trying to write the next big thing or the next unique storyline. And this is a good way to sort of, shrink it down to someone who's just there for a quick Facebook view or on YouTube, and they're referred by a search to check this out. And it sort of just spiraled out from there. And the good news for me is I get to work with a lot of talented writers. And so a lot of times whenever this process starts, so a writer will come to me or I've come to them and we've chatted about the plot, the book, their background, these things, but how does it actually take place? How does their 300-page novel come into 2 minutes? Well, I typically will send out some PDF form, and through that form, it's about 4 pages, and it's just pretty specific questions about really the author for me to know. Why did you write this? What was the story behind you wanting to write this? I'd like to capture the heart of what you're trying to tell, not so much the plot points, because we can all look at those on the back of a cover. I like to tell these stories through my trailers by what the author intended to happen. And through that is just a complete collaboration between me and the author. Typically about a week back and forth of, here's my version of it. What do you think? Give me some notes. I'll give you my notes and we'll just make this work. And then typically through a lot of communication and maybe a couple of drafts, 2 or 3 here and there, we finally get the product. And it really seems to play in the world of a short attention span quite well. And so it's a service, it's a premium service, and it's, I think, definitely cutting edge in terms of book launches and getting the stories out there in which you might not have as much time or the luxury of time to tell. So that's kind of the whole gist of it. At the end of the day, I enjoy doing it, and it's pretty simple. I enjoy telling a story. For me, it's my way of being creative. It's my way of using my imagination, and it's yours forever. So that's kind of the gist. Yeah, is there any questions I can answer before I just talk myself into oblivion here? I kind of gave some broad brushstrokes, but I'd be happy to get specific on things.
Can you put your website in the chat box?
Yeah, thank you. Good question. My website's actually under construction, as all websites are, which means I need to do better on it. But no, it is under construction. We had an overload of usage due to the data size. And so right now I'm trying to upgrade because after about 100 videos or so, it gets a little slow. And so right now I'm trying to compress sizes down in files. And that's just something I need a couple more, I feel like, days or weeks maybe to get down. But as of now, frontroseproductions@gmail.com is the way to reach me. And what I've had happen, because my website's been down for the past 2 or 3 weeks, is I've actually had people reach out last week for an author in Tennessee, and she heard about me through one of my New York connections. And from there, I sent her a bunch of samples of things because she was asking about the website as well, which is super common. So that's something that I'm doing in the interim until I get it back up and running. But I need a lot more space on it. But yeah, so frontroseproductions@gmail.com. And if anybody is wondering where Front Rows came in, because it is kind of a weird one. Has anybody seen the movie Bull Durham with Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon? Okay, so
Great baseball film.
oh, it's the one of the best. So this all starts with my mother, I promise. So going back to my mom being the first trailer I worked on, that's her favorite movie of all time. She loves that movie to death. And she always said this growing up. She'd always say, "The rose goes in front, big guy." And I was like, "What is this from, Mom?" And it was from Bull Durham. So the quote from that movie, I just switched to Front Rows. So it all goes back to Mom is what I'm getting at. But yeah, so frontroseproductions@gmail.com is the way to get in touch with me now. And then from there is a lot of samples from the website that'll be up and running. Like I said, hopefully within the next 2 weeks, assuming everything works out with the Squarespace that I'm using right now.
So Josh, what are some of the sources that you have for like music, because
Yeah.
that's always a big thing with the rights of
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
the certain music and stuff. So how do you manage that?
Totally. Well, it's very important to know that everything that I use and everything involved in my trailer is all the author's ownership. Whether it is royalty free or copyright free, or in a lot of cases, I will buy it because it's hard to supplement something that I know has to be in there. It's all the authors. We've had people kind of come out of the woodwork and try to fight these, but everything I have is logged and recorded. So when it comes to music, which is actually my favorite part, the process of the trailer starts with music for me. So there's various sources. I don't really have a specific one off the top of my head, but I will say that um, one of my favorite directors, Quentin Tarantino, writes his scripts and movies to music. Every scene is written with a song, and I typically lean toward a non-lyrical song, so maybe an orchestral classical piece. Whether or not that's in the trailer or not, it just gives you sort of the artistic freedom to let the creative juices flow. So everything is royalty and copyright free. There's a slew of sources, but it really just depends. But yeah, that is a good question, because that's exactly where I like to start. Get the heartbeat of the story first, and then the visuals. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't really learn or pay attention visually. So much is auditory, and so much is body language and more of an essence. And I find that music is the quickest way to pierce an essence. As an actor, it's such a common tool as well to get into a heightened state, and so I try to relay that over to book trailers as well.
John,
Ask you something.
um,
I asked you about the visuals.
Yes.
What program do you use to get the videos done?
So the program that I like is Final Cut Pro. I started off using Avid because whenever I was in college, I was a sports broadcasting major and a journalism minor, and I wanted to be in television production. And Avid at the time was an editing software in which it was the industry standard. Everyone's talking about it. And it turns out when I was starting to look for jobs, no one was using Avid. Everyone was using Final Cut Pro. And so I started hopping on that train back in around 2014. And that to me gives me the most strings to play with. It really breaks things down, especially when it comes to visuals and to the songs, whether it's detaching audio to sync with the transition in the video. I find that Final Cut is so much more user-friendly than a lot of the editing softwares out there, including Avid and Adobe Premiere, which is a big one for the film industry. I don't think that it serves I don't think it serves what I'm doing as well, because a lot of the trailers that I do, for example, if there's an explosion in a video in a footage and a barrel explodes, a lot of times that footage that I'm drawing does not have the sound. So now I got to supplement the sound of something exploding with it, sync them up together, layer in the music underneath, and then that 2 seconds is like 5 different levels that I've created to make it look like just one thing. So Final Cut Pro allows me to really break down each level and layer to tell the full story. That includes whether it's a voiceover I want to layer in as well, or if I want to mesh music. I mean, it's really a lot of different pieces that just hopefully make it look like it's, I drew that barrel exploding from one direct source. No, it's probably 3 sources to make that 1 5-second shot work, because a lot of things do not come all the way together. It really does take like a full slew of different sources to make that one shot work, if that's what I think it needs.
So, Josh, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
When it comes to what you see most with authors,
Mhm.
do you see the use of book trailers for the audio version of a book more so than the e-copy or paperback or hardback?
So everything that I've cross-analyzed, a lot of the work that I've done is with authors who have tracked analytics based on the launch of the trailer. And so, although it's not going to be totally accurate, let's say to really shorten it down, they've had 10 sales over the past month. They launch a trailer, get a couple thousand views. That next month, they have 30 sales. We try to track it that way, and I found that paperback, or at least Amazon purchases of an actual physical copy, tend to be purchased more than something electronic or something audible after the trailer launch. Now, it's going to be possible to directly correlate it to that, but we have tracked it that way, and it appears that the story in the tangible world, the physical piece, tends to be more sought after after the trailer's released, which to me, it makes sense. It's a world that you want to physically be in after witnessing something. I know whenever I watch a movie, I don't wait for it to come to my iMac. I want to be in the theater after that trailer. When I see a book trailer, I want to hold the book and read it myself. And so there really is something sort of heightened about the essence of a trailer that really makes you want to engage fully into the experiences like an immersion. And I find that the physical copies are what sells more after the trailer. Yeah.
Well, that's a follow up. That's the question I was going to ask you, which I think is a hard question, but I've been trying a lot of different things. Like I just did another Facebook ad, and
Yeah.
to see if you recover the money you've spent in an ad, in my case, is fairly easy because the sales are so low. But I'm wondering, do you have any statistics for just across the board for your clients that they recoup the cost or they don't recoup the cost of, because I have no idea, but I'm imagining hiring you, for example, will be very expensive. So I'm going to have to sell an awful lot of books to recoup the cost.
Exactly. I can only account for my repeat customers, and I've had standing relationships with over, dozens of authors over the past 6 or 7 years in which they have recouped their cost and come back to me. It is a service. It's nothing. I don't believe it's outstanding, but I do know that the repeat service tells me that their cost has been recouped and value is added to the marketplace. When it comes to competing with ads like on Facebook or on YouTube, these are quick hits in which, again, it goes back to the attention span. I find in a lot of the clients that I've had, they don't come to me as a last resort, but they've exhausted these options already. And so something's not working whenever you're on Facebook and you see a quick bit about buy this book, it's really great. There's something already within the nature of a Facebook ad that you scroll through for dopamine hits, and it's just another hit. So in other words, it's not separating itself. So whenever you do see something that takes you in for at least 90 seconds to 120 seconds, it's removing you from that 7-second attention span that the average person deals with nowadays. And so the recoup cost is definitely in that sort of proof of just the overall ability to catch someone in their tracks, stop the popcorn from going into the mouth, and let them sit there and watch what's going on. I have found that the cost has been recouped, but again, that is mainly predicated on my repeat service. It's not my place, so to speak, to track the author's expenses, but yeah, I do take pride in having a repeat service.
When you do a book trailer, do you do them like in a package or more than one trailer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do volume discounts as well, if that's what you're asking. If you have a book series of 3, there's definitely discounts included in package, just depending on how it goes. I've had some people come to me with 5 books that weren't going to be released for a while, but they wanted to pay up front, and that was just a commitment type thing that we've made. So at the end of the day, I'm an artist as well. The biggest thing for me is a total collaboration, and that includes the price points. I do have a starting off rate, but again, it varies. Some people have, I've had people come to me for more of a series overview than an actual book. And so that was going to be a little different than a novel in its direct self. I've had people come to me for trilogies. It really just depends. But yes, of course, there's volume discounts thrown in whenever it does come to more of a.
Okay. What I was thinking of, do you do like maybe 2 or 3 book trailers for one book? Like, yeah. So you can run them like a month and then run, or a couple of weeks, then run another one for the same book. Sort of like you see when you see movie trailers.
Absolutely.
The first one come out, then they'll have another one come out to show a little bit more, that kind of thing.
That's a really good question. I remember, and I do, and that's the same sort of process with volume discount. Whenever Interstellar was coming out back in, I think, 2012, I was back in New York, and around that time, I had someone coming to me saying, "Hey, I just saw Interstellar, the 3rd trailer for the same movie, and I was wondering if you do separate book trailers as well." And so that was what sort of started the array into volume discounts, and we actually brokered that to where it was one every, I think, 3 months. And so we didn't do it for the full year, but we did it for about 75%, 3/4 of the year. We found that very successful in terms of just a steady streamline of activity based on her Amazon purchases whenever she spread it out over the year with the new trailer over the same story. So it's very similar to the movie industry. But yeah, absolutely, we do that as well. And that's usually a commitment made up front with dates set in mind. So if you have a book that you're launching and you want 3 trailers in by February, we're going to have one ready to go November 1st, December 1st, January 1st, and that'll all be committed upon and from both parties as well. So, and that's something I also like to collaborate to as well as timeline. A lot of times, you know, it is hard to track when is the most, when the buyers go to these sites the most, when people are looking for books the most, whether it is during holiday season or whether it is around, early in spring, whenever the sun's out, what part of the nation are you in? I mean, all these things are taken into consideration when it comes to timeline purchases like that. And luckily we do have certain analytics to track that as well, mainly through websites. But yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely, we do that.
Do you see, Josh, a trend towards more authors using book trailers? Is this something that's becoming more usual and normal, or what do
Yeah.
you see the trends being?
Here's how I defined a trend. That's a really good question because I think about podcasts right now, and I think about how for the past 5 years I've been hearing we're in the golden age of podcasting. But the more that I see new and I love podcasts. First of all, I wanted to start one, so no knock against podcasts. But the more that I see more podcasts being developed, the more I'm thinking, okay, well, this isn't the next thing yet, or it's already been the next thing, and so now people are behind. So it's almost late to the curve. Even though you're still in the realm of this era, you're still at the end of it. So when I think of book trailers, I don't see a lot of people saying, I'm going to start my own book trailer company. I don't see people saying that's a great idea, which means it's on the rise. And so once it becomes a great idea, it's already too late and people are already late on board. And so for a lot of people, I'm not aware of that much competition. I have been involved with certain publishing houses, and they've been very kind and have said as well, there's not a lot of companies out there that specialize in this. Some people outsource for it for maybe just one book at a time, but in terms of an actual company that does this, there's not a lot, which I believe is a positive trend, because like you said, once you read about it, it is too late. So it does seem to be on the precipice of that sort of trend. Yeah.
Okay, so once you have your book trailer, then where do you put it? You put it on your own website? Do you pay to put it in other places? Where do you put it?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's various places. And one, physically, if you're at a book launch yourself, I've had people set up certain iPads or stations at their table when they're signing for their books and people walk by and check out the bookmark. What is this? Or a TV behind them. Well, check this out. There's certain time. I've had a customer put on a timer to where it's like, 90 seconds, the trailer starts. And so once you put some timer in place, people start gathering. And so in the physical world, definitely at launches, definitely at signings, giveaways, whatever it is that you can do out there in the actual world, it's pretty easy to hold something handheld. When it comes to technology, and this is the important thing, we have found that through Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, the biggest times to do it are going to be early in the week. And that's something that's really interesting because I've had a lot of people that buy or that start posting ads later in the week once I give them their trailer. And for some reason, the weekend is not a fun time to start buying books, it appears. And so there's certain analytics to track. Early in the week is a really powerful one on those 3 websites. Facebook is super popular. Facebook is easy because it's easier to assign links to what you're selling. When you go to Instagram, sometimes I've had clients that somebody doesn't know that they have to hold the picture to release the tag. Then you have to click on the tag to buy the book. It is certain layers with Instagram that I find is a little bit tough, but we have found that Facebook is the gold mine to post these specific trailers because it leads directly to the Amazon account or directly to your website. As far as YouTube, I view YouTube, and I've had this debate for I feel like the past year or so, but it's almost a secondary source to these primary social media outlets. YouTube is amazing, but it's more of a Rolodex of what you have. It's not the primary selling point. We found Facebook's amazing, and then the website. But at the end of the day, the website, the Instagram, the YouTube, they're all stemming from something in particular. And we found that Facebook is the best way to gather reader tracking and audiences. and to post a trailer there at the source is a good trickle down effect for the rest of your outlets. But it really does start with Facebook. It appears with these trailers specifically. And the plus of it is, I know you can track certain analytics on Instagram, but that's for a business account. For Facebook, it is much easier to track these things, and that's what we found to be the most successful rate. But I've also had people that are super creative. I've had people drop off USBs at publishing houses with a book trailer attached to the USB. So, I mean, there's ways to sneak these things in to market yourself as well. The trailer is almost like an acting reel to me. If I have an acting reel and I need to show an agent how good of an actor I am, I'm going to find a way to sneak that 2-minute clip onto a USB, into an email server, whatever it may be, and try to get in front of them. One website that I like using, this one is more of like a groundwork marketing effect. If you are really relentless.
Lost
Josh,
you.
we lost you.
Yeah, your audio cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think all of you are muted, so I can't hear you, I don't think. I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Okay, how about now? Good?
Yeah, you're good.
I got you. Sorry about that. Not sure where I was leaving off, but if I was just going to say, as an actor, if I'm trying to push my 90-second reel into some agent or some manager, part of the, I'm trying to think of where I was even going with this.
The website for marketing.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, so I use Hightail. Now, hightail.com is a streaming platform. Now, what does that mean? It means that you can post certain videos or files or a resume, whatever it may be, and house it under one concise thing. Now, it's not a website, but it's very similar to that. It's a space. And so one thing that I've had clients do, which is really interesting, is whenever you're going through and you're reading an email, you're pushing it to a publishing house, if you attach a Hightail to it, you have everything listed in a very concise form. It's the book trailer, it's the book itself, it's the marketing plan for the book, it's everything you want this person to obtain, and it's all in one house, and you can track it really easily. You can see when the person opened it, what they downloaded, and that gives you as the author some sort of leverage in this whole thing to use a trailer that you just paid for. And so that's something I tend to push a lot of is hightail.com, because at the end of the day, much like an artist myself, a lot of this stuff feels out of your control. You know, you work so hard on a product and you want to push it, and yet you don't know if this person watches the thing. And so there are certain ways outside of the conventional thinking of Facebook, YouTube, all this stuff, to get really down with it. And that's like a Hightail, which I find is a very good marketing tool to employ the trailers on if you're going specifically to a source. So if there's someone that you just, I need this house to have my book, send a Hightail, don't send your website. Because even if they click on it, it's going to be really hard to know. You're not going to be able to track it as well. And so these little things are really important. And on a total side note, this is just with marketing in general. One thing I like doing as well, which is going to sound, it might sound a little creepy, but is bananatag.com. Have you heard, if anyone's heard of Banana Tag, it's really interesting because it tracks your emails. So I'm all about the struggling artist mentality of I'm not going to stop until this person reads my book, watches my reel, watches this trailer. Banana Tag tracks an email and it tells you if this person opened it, when they opened it, if they go back to it, and it gives the artist some freaking power in this world of where you're trying to push your product in a competitive market. And that's something else we talk about too with these things is marketing side of it, because you do pay for a trailer. It is a good product and it tells a story well, but how do we get it in the hands of these people? Well, that's a whole nother step. And that's just something I'm passionate about in general, because I'm sort of dealing with the same thing in a separate world. But there are certain ways outside of, Julie, to answer your question, outside of the conventional way of posting these things to get your product out there, such as a streaming house like Hightail. And that's something I really, really think is valuable and gives you a lot of power as well.
So I have a question just because I'm curious. So
Yeah.
are there better like genres of books that do better as book trailers than others, or is it like across the board that they all just generally do pretty good?
That's a good question. So I break it down into fiction and nonfiction, actually. Fiction does really well. Fiction is definitely the most commonly used book that I go to, and that includes all genres. I've done everything from romance to sports to thrillers to technological, worlds. I feel like it's pretty easy to craft a fictional world through a trailer. But on the flip side, I have done a ton of nonfiction and from therapists, from certain people that are pushing, Be Fearless books. How do you tell that? And that's a whole nother, it's a whole nother way of, I will say, using a trailer as a medium. And it is successful, but I would say the bulk of my clients are just in fiction, and that includes all genres. But when it gets to nonfiction, it is different. And a lot of it comes with statistics, and a lot of it comes with a lot of direct quotes and inputs from the author itself. Whereas in a fictional trailer, I love taking the freedom, and I love relaying the freedom back. And that includes all genres, though, for fictional world. I will say, surprisingly, I did a rom-com. It was a rom-com. It was more of a sad romance, but I did this one back in 2017, and it was around Christmas time, and it was a pretty sad story about this girl who struggles with OCD, and then her mom passes away to cancer. And so you're like, okay, well, how do we tell this coming of age story of this teenage girl suffering through high school and these tragic things in a trailer? How do we tell this and not depress people, so to speak, before they even read the book? And that was a real challenge. But that one, I still to this day, is the most viewed one we've had. It had over 38,000 views around the holidays. Now this person had a decent following, but still, that was, I wouldn't have thought it would have been that genre, but it seems to exist in just every fictional genre that really plays well with these. Yeah, it's a great question.
So,
Do you,
go, Jane. You're
okay. Do you hire the actors and people to be in it, or how did that work?
James, right? I can't believe that I missed this story, because going back to New York when I was there, to answer your question, I do not. So I don't hire any actors. But when I was in New York, it was, I can't remember if it was right before I did the first trailer or not, but I was actually cast in a book trailer as an actor. And so that was around the same time I was like, what am I acting in right now? I thought it was a short film. And it was a lot of fun. But the quality of footage that I use for the trailers, that's $1 million production, so it really is just the quality you're going to get for the trailers that I use versus anything else that requires a real actor. It's not going to be even close to the same, unless you do have millions in a production. That's the quality of video I use. So I don't hire any actors, but only because of the production value. It's not, I have a lot of talented actor friends, but we'd have to have a full setup, and that's just.
So follow up, then do you do still pictures, things like that? I had 2 trailers done. One I liked a lot, one I didn't like at all.
Yeah.
So,
well, still pictures, actually, it really plays well. It really depends, but I've used still pictures for a number of things. One I've used as sort of a push in with the product. So in the middle of a trailer, we had this heartbeat monitor, and this person wanted this specific heartbeat because it was related to her grandma, and it was written in the book. And so she wanted this actual picture used, and I was like, well, it's not the footage, it's just a picture, but it was important to the author. So now it's a whole new game of, okay, can I use a still picture that matches the quality? The quality of the picture was great, but how do I match it into the video world? Because I don't want it to be motion, 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 still picture, motion, motion, motion. So luckily through Final Cut, like you were asking, there are ways to push and pan through the picture and sort of distort it a bit to make it look like it's in motion, to get the shot that they wanted. So I've used it that way, but the main times I use still pictures are at the end of a trailer. So it sort of bookends the whole thing, to where if there's some exclamation point from a still picture that you just have to get in there, it's typically at the end, only because the flow that's created from the beginning. I try my best to make the flow as seamless as possible, because that's all we've got is 90 to 120 seconds of a seamless, flowy transitional video package. And still pictures, it's really difficult to get them in there without disrupting the flow, unless it's the end, or unless it's crafted in such a way that where it looks like it's a part of the video.
so what do you put in the video if you don't use actors?
So going back to the one of the questions earlier, there are a number of sources of people call them royalty-free or stock footage videos. And a lot of these things, I would say 70% of them are going to be pretty cheesy, corny type things. There are certain sites that sort of filter that out for you. So when it comes to actors in my videos, this is always a very particular thing that I like. I like crafting my story behind. I don't like making an actor a face of the product, because at the end of the day, the author's face of whoever the character is probably not going to be found through these stock websites. So how do I use a face that matches this character? Well, I try not to if I can. I really do. I try not to make a direct face in the trailer, because at the end of the day, there's not a lot out there. And a lot of times it's not a flattering footage of the actor that's on these. I sort of view it as like a yard full of leaves, and I'm raking through and trying to find some nuggets there. There's very few acting performances on these royalty-free footages in which an actor you would want as the face of your product. It really has nothing to do with me and my preference. They're just not really good, and that's just the nature of it. But I have used them before, and it really just depends. So, but yeah, I really try not to bring a direct face to it if I can. But that's where creativity comes in. With the OCD person, use that example. You know, we had this beautiful shot of this girl opening up to where the main thing that we had to get across is that it's a teenage girl in high school coming of age story. That was sort of the main log line, and then the rest was thrown in there. So, okay, well, this is a clear face we need to have, but I don't want to use some of these girls' faces that are on these royalty-free websites because I just don't think it fits. So how do you tell it? We opened up with this beautiful shot of this girl tapping her leg like an OCD trait, like a tick. And in the background, we had a ticking clock. And it started speeding up while she was tapping. And then we cut to a behind the back shot of the hair flowing through the beach where she was walking. And then we cut to the emergency room. So already, subconsciously, you have your lead character and you haven't even seen her face. And so there are so many ways to craft this thing without having an actual face of the operation. And I try my best not to, only because I just don't like it. And I don't find it that compelling of a product. Yeah, so this is a great question.
Josh, do you have some that you could share with us, like to see some of your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a hightail that I can attach, and everyone can look at some of the footage in the hightail. That's not yeah, absolutely. I'll send that over to maybe Amy after, if that's okay, and you can send that. Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. But the hightail, you'll find it's pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, you also did Roxanne Charles's new. You've done most of their Enigma series, and then their new book coming out, Threat, which is the latest one that we showed.
I was like, you can show that. Yeah, that one's one of my favorites, actually, and I don't know if you still have it, Amy, but that would be great to post right now. So, but speaking of repeat customers, I mean, Roxanne Charles, I've known, it's crazy, but about 6 years, and I've really been along with the Enigma series ride, for the past 6 years, and that one. You know, I think James was asking about 3 trailers for the same story. Well, this Enigma series, I've had to do a new trailer for each book, and it's the same world. And one thing that I pride myself on is I don't use any repeat footage. If you come to me and say, Josh, I want 10 trailers of one book, not one frame will be the same, because that's cheating you and me, and that's not going to happen. So with Roxanne Charles, it's been probably one of the biggest challenges of, although their story evolves, and there's maybe 10 or so books of the Enigma series, it is still the same world. And so not using the same footage while still telling the same story is something that I take great pride in finding. And they, they're a great sample size of that. And this latest trailer, I don't know why it becomes my favorite, but yeah, there was something about it that I just feel like the scale became really, really more broad. And if we can play it here, yeah, it's none of that footage was used in the earlier 10 or so, and so that's something that that's definitely included, so to speak, with a lot of these things.
So Josh, a quick question, like what is the best length for a trailer? Like which length do you feel has the most impact and really works the best for selling the product?
Now, where are we asking where the trailer is going and the link attached to it?
No, like the length, like, you know, is it a
Yeah.
5-minute trailer? You know,
No.
like, what do you think works the best?
I don't do longer. I really don't do longer than 2 minutes if I can't, or if I can. That is the cutoff for me. It's something, you know, if you think of a feature film, it's a 2-hour format. Typical trailers are 90 to 120 seconds. I like to keep it right in there. That's my ultimate aim. Actually, that's outside of music. That's probably the most important thing because it does a few things for you. For me in particular, it gives me a playing field and it gives me something to really work to achieve. Without that, you lose sight of rhythm and tempo and sort of the communion of the story. So if it's like, oh, let's make it whatever you want, you're sort of misguided in how this thing is going to be perceived. So when I give myself a parameter, that gives me a field to play. And within that field, then I can start saying, okay, this works here and there because I know it has to be here. So that way I really got to, there's a phrase in acting, kill your baby, so to speak, when you trim out all the fat. That 2-minute slot, I find is the audience and the receiver is the perfect length, and also as the creator, it just gives me exactly the parameters I need. So I try not to go more than 2 minutes. Again, it's not like a hard cutoff, but that's my goal for sure. And I don't want to go under it either. I like 2 minutes. I don't want to do minute 45. I really like that 2-minute block. So yeah, that's a really good question. I think even in the acting world, because a lot of it's the same in terms of marketing and video and things. We have demo reels as actors of our performances, and the rule of thumb is not to go over 3. And you know, I get it. You don't want to sit down for 7 minutes, and you kind of know. You just know pretty quickly, and that includes in these trailers as well. You know if you want to read it or not. And that first shot that I use is typically going to catch someone's attention. And I try to do it as a wide scale right up front because it builds a world pretty quickly. So it's part of that as well.
Yeah, I
So-
have a trailer to show you.
Yeah. Can you play it on your screen?
I think so. Hopefully you guys can hear it. You have to like let me know if you guys can hear it though.
Yeah, so this one, just a quick backstory, was with Charles and Rocks, like Amy was saying. Actually, we'll just let it go.
How did it get here? Questions. No answers. A new world is upon us. One we should have seen coming. One we should have seen coming. Did we push too far? Is this still our world? We are defined by how we rebuild. The race for global domination is at stake. As we face our biggest threat.
It's a little laggy here and there, but yeah, that's sort of the gist. Yeah, I think that hit around 2:04 right before the end credits, so to speak. But yeah, that's it. Thank you, Amy, for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So Josh, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
To really find yourself in line with the author's message from the book and the audience the author is really trying to reach, do you allot yourself enough time to read the entire work, or do you just depend on the author to give you the segments that they want to see in the trailer?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that does depend. I give myself the liberty to sort of evaluate. And so at the end of the day, it's my product that's being out there. It is attached to an author's name, but it's still the Front Row Productions trailer. So it really depends. With Rox and Berkey, for example, Rox and Charles, for example, I've worked with them in the past. And so we have a system to where they send me such a detailed synopsis outside of with the characters, and then as well as what they want to employ as authors themselves and the impact they want to make. I take all that into consideration. But if I can read the thing, that is preferred. I've had PDFs sent to me constantly, and I'll read through them and make assessments. But even when I have the book and I read it, and I've done this before, I still need to know exactly why you want to tell the story, because that's different than what the story is. We can tell a techno thriller all day long about the Enigma threat and it's the plot points, but at the end of the day, why do Charles and Rox want this story out there? Well, because they're probably terrified of technology taking over and this happening. Okay, so I'm going to play on terror. I'm going to have explosions. I'm going to have heartbeats, time crunches, things like that to heighten the intensity level. And so it really does. It's just a combination of things. It is preferred to read. And if I do read, I usually give myself a timeline. So if it's a Tarina, right? Tarina? Yeah. So if it, hey, great working with you. I'm going to have this read by Tuesday, and then we'll assess. And so it's a deadline before we get started. And I've done that before in the past. But it does depend. With Rox and Charles, we have such a good relationship that we're still getting the story across. But yeah, I do prefer to read if I can.
Okay.
Yeah. But there is a PDF as well that I'll send out, like I mentioned earlier, and that's just pretty detailed stuff that I like to have to play with, and it sort of cuts through the reading process if it's required. So,
what is the minimum and maximum lengths that you would recommend for a trailer?
I really think that well, let me ask you something, Red. Let me ask you. Just now, I know it was a little bit laggy on that trailer, but did that feel too short or too long?
Well, for a what do you call it? A movie with action and adventure and mystery and all this, it seemed about right. I watched a trailer for the new James Bond movie about 2 hours ago. And it was a little bit long, it was almost 3 minutes.
Again, yeah, totally. So going back to genre, like I was talking about with Amy, again, yeah, I found that the 2-minute mark really plays well to all genres. So even though this one we just watched was an action-packed one, the romance one was the most viewed, and it was, I'm sure it was around the same. I still wouldn't go over 3 minutes. I'm not saying you can go under 2. That's fair, depending on what it is, of course. But 3 minutes is, we all value our time, and every second truly does count. And that's 30. That's I don't know. I think anything above 2 is really stretching it. I don't want someone to sit there and say, okay, I've seen enough and close off. I'd rather them say I want more than say, okay, like I get it. So I tend to cap off at 2. More for fear of them just wanting to turn it off. So that's kind of what I like to say.
Do you charge by the amount of time you spend on it, or is there a flat fee for 2 minutes, or how do you go about setting a fee schedule for what you do?
Yeah, no fee attached. If you want it 5 minutes, I can make it work. I just don't think that's a direct approach. When it comes to prices, it's a flat rate, which is talked about up front. Typically what happens is you and I will discuss, okay, Red, you want this thing out November, what month are we? November 15th. Okay, great. I'm going to require, it's like half the payment up front, and I'm going to get you the first draft in 7 days. And then from there, we have to hit landmarks. We have to have the second draft in by November 3rd. And then the last draft has to be done by November 10th, so we can have it ready by November 15th. So there's a very detailed outline, and it's all taken care of right up front, depending on your goals. I turn stuff around quick. It's really I've never had it to where I've been the one that is delaying the problem. I've had certain people that don't get back to me, and I'm like, okay, like let's get this going if we're going to do it. So I do take pride in turning it around within 48 hours, assuming the material has been read or the PDFs have been scanned. So once the material's in, I'll turn it around very quickly. And I typically have a 48-hour rule, but I like to set a schedule with the author. And I also like to set a schedule because I like collaborating. And I've knocked it out on the first draft, but at the end of the day, a schedule gives us a safety net in case you don't like it and you don't have a product that you're not stuck with a product you don't like. So it is just it's a flat rate. Again, it does get a little different if you want multiple ones or a series or multiple trailers, but yeah.
Does the flat rate include like a certain number of changes to it?
It's
You know,
it's everything. Yeah, it's yeah. So I feel like it's a very common question. So I'll just be totally direct with everyone. It's $600 for these trailers. And so typically how it works is I get $350 up front. Now the $350 up front is only because I don't know if I need to buy footage or not. A lot of this stuff depends on, I might need to spend $200 to make this thing work. I'm not going to settle for what it could be, but it's $350 up front. And then, is it Fernanda?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's say that you want it out by November 15th and by November 11th, you hate it. Well, you don't have to use it and your $350 is back. But if you do like it and we have 20 different edits, then it's $250 after the final one's done. And so it's always, I've never had an issue with that. Ever. It's your book at the end of the day and your story, and I'm here to service that. But I do like taking a leap out front to give you an idea of what it could be, and then we take it from there. But it's never been an issue. And I love the nitpicky parts. I love where, okay, this word's great, but it needs to be changed to that. That needs to be 1 second shorter. That I really enjoy. And that's, again, going back to the 48-hour turnaround. I turn it around super quick because time is money, and I don't want anyone to think that their time isn't being valued. And that includes however many we got to get it to work. That's how many it's going to take. Yeah.
and I agree with you on the 2-minute thing. I was looking into doing a sizzle for
Yeah.
Meg's book, and I was like, okay, I was told 3 minutes is the max that you really want to entertain people, because they'll know in 3 minutes if they want to, do this or not. And so
Yeah. In the acting world, they know in 15 seconds. I mean, when you're auditioning and you go in there and start reading, I mean, I know it's a different world, but it's still the same attention span of people just kind of know. And yeah, I never want to flirt with the idea of, okay, I've seen enough. I'd always try to push what else is next. So yeah, I don't think there's any science behind it. There might be, but I've got to believe that's like the right number.
Okay, so are there any last minute questions? Because we are coming up on 8 o'clock, and I know Josh needs to leave right at 8. So yes, Red.
Competitor analysis, other people who do, let's say that you're in a fiction super spy like James Bond, do you look at other competitors to get an idea of what's been out there, or is this just all your own creativity from day one?
So that's a good question, Red. Whenever you talk about competitors, are we talking about other James Bond stories or other book trailer companies?
Other book trailers.
Yeah. I have never looked at another book trailer competitor because at the end of the day, I'm not competing with anyone. I'm sitting here servicing an author and I'm trying to tell the best story possible. If people want to compete with me, please feel free. But the moment I put my attention on someone else, I'm going to lose sight of what I'm trying to do. So I haven't even Googled book trailer editors. This is all something that I try to keep close to the chest. I don't really market myself a lot. It's not something that I'm not trying to build I'm not trying to make a big empire out of book trailers. I enjoy doing it and I like working with people. And if I can help sell books, that's great. But yeah, when it comes to competitors, no shot. And I've got to believe that gives me so much more freedom to really just do what I want to do. So, but that's a good question. But going back to what I was saying as well, if you have a James Bond thriller, I might look at some James Bond trailers to get some inspiration. Absolutely. I would do the same if I was writing a screenplay. I would do the same if I was acting in a scene. I love inspiration, and I'm constantly looking for those. I know that at the beginning of this Enigma threat, I opened with landscape shots, very wide range shots. The reason I do that is because Christopher Nolan in Insomnia opens on Alaska, the very vast space of Alaska, to show that the inner world is small in comparison. Well, when it comes to the Enigma threat, the people that are fighting this vast world are on this very little island in one small room. And so I try to contrast that with the opening shot. So that was a direct inspiration for one of my favorite directors. So it is all played upon like that as well with these trailers. I'm a film addict. And so I do look for inspiration a ton, but not competition, no.
Josh,
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. what do you do besides make book trailers, since you say you're not trying to make this?
Well, James, I enjoy it, first of all, but I'm an actor. So I'm in Los Angeles. I actually, part of the reason I got to run tonight, I have an audition tomorrow for this film, and I'm working with someone tonight on it. And so, I'm, like I said, I'm an artist at heart. And this is something, the very nature of the name of my company is tied to my mother. So this is a very dear thing to me. So I do like working with people I trust. And so outside of that, I'm an actor and out here in Los Angeles trying to get that as well. Yeah.
Well, break a leg out there, my friend.
Yeah. Are there any more last minute questions before I close this out? No? Going once?
Thank you all. This was a ton of fun. I really appreciate it.
Oh, good. No, thank you for coming. I'm so glad that, that I met you on Rocks and Charles cover reveal and we could talk about your book. I don't know if you hear my show,
in touch.
but whatever. It's just, you guys, it's Monday. So that's just my kid. That's how my day has gone. So just ignore her in the background. But anyway.
She's just saying congratulations to Josh as well.
It always comes at the worst times. I swear, she's been really good this whole time, and I haven't had to speak, and now I have to talk, and she's just like losing it. But anyways, Josh, thank you so much for talking to us. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see.
Yeah, and the last thing before I let us all go, please email me, frontrowsproductions@gmail.com. Regardless if you want a trailer or not, just email me and we can chat about marketing. We can chat about my opinion. I don't care. I love stories. So please, you have an open door. You have a friend in me, and thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I put your email in the chat, but I will also send it out in the Facebook group. Where it's just whenever I need to talk.
Let's get Amy out of here.
You're torturing her.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of the day.